Welcome to episode 173 of the Startup Show. Today we are here at the studio and I'm very excited to speak to a partner and the CDO of KPMG Switzerland, Beat Seger. We are talking everything about the future of consulting, how Beat perceives it, how he makes sure that digital transformation is acted upon at KPMG Switzerland, but also some very, very hands-on advice for your life. Make sure you stay tuned for the whole video. Welcome to episode 173 of the Startup Show. Today I'm very excited to speak to a partner of KPMG and the Chief Digital Officer, Beat Seger. Thank you so much for stopping by here at the studio. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very, very excited because as you are the Chief Digital Officer of KPMG, one of the big fours and a very, very prestigious company. I'm very excited to hear what you're doing. But first of all, as usual, we have a tradition on the Startup Show that you have to introduce yourself first to the audience so everybody knows who you are. So maybe please take it away, tell everybody maybe where you come from and what you do.
Thank you very much. My name is Beat. I'm a Swiss citizen, 53 years old, Obviously not a digital native, but I dare to say that I've been at the forefront of technology developments all the time. So that's my background. I was born into an entrepreneurial family. I ran my own businesses before joining KPMG some 10 years ago. And I also started some startups, as you would call them today.
Yes.
These were smaller companies. I wanted to grow them to the bigger, on a bigger scale, but in the 90s, it was not that easy to get the seed funding you needed for that. So one of them was a web development firm. Today you would call it UX, web mobile development firm. Another one was an early e-commerce. There was simply a lack of money at that time to grow it to a substantial company. And the third, I actually started this in the early 2000s. This was a franchise company. I grew it up to 180 franchisees. Brought it into a stage where we could certify it ISO and go for business excellence. And that was the time when I resold it and was a new step in my career when I joined KPMG before 2010.
Some of the things that people said, like, we do our research and we ask people kind of like what we should ask you and what was interesting about you. Someone pointed out to me that like I should ask you about your dad and the entrepreneurial spirit that you inherited like directly in your family. So maybe you can tell us a little bit like how like you define this entrepreneurial spirit for yourself.
An interesting question. I think you can't copy-paste entrepreneurship. Yes. You really have to grow into it. And I would define entrepreneurship as as an intrinsic energy to always find new ways to achieve a goal. And also take some risk, obviously.
One of the things that I'm curious to know before we go more into like the deep dive of KPMG and your work there, like you yourself said about like you're not a digital native and now you are the chief digital officer. What kind of like was this digital competency that you brought to the table that like convinced KPMG that you are the right person to be the CDO?
We have to analyze what digitalization really means.
Yes.
For me, this is mostly transformation and technology is part of the driver. So as I just mentioned, the franchise company, this was a transformation of franchise companies into, let's say, business excellence. So it's an organizational task. And of course, I have the technology background with the startup companies I already mentioned. And I've been at the Digital Advisory Board, as we call it, in KPMG for more than 2 years. So this also brought me into this direction of, let's say, where people were interested in appointing me as Chief Digital Officer.
So maybe you can explain a little bit, I mean, everybody out there who maybe have not heard about KPMG, which I doubt, but let's say, what is your role as a Chief Digital Officer? What is kind of like your competency when it's about like digitalization within the company?
As an overarching topic, I would say, lead the company into a digital future. Because I'm sure you can't define it or distinguish between internal or external tasks. because in a digital world, it's an end-to-end connection between what we can offer and what the client needs. The chief digital officer has actually to build the bracket above all it, which means help the firm transform the culture into a more client-centric way, and also enable the firm to deliver on a digital basis.
Now, when you say like you just started this role, so you're rather new in this role, but like maybe you can see like how you kind of like perceive like what KPMG in terms of digital should look like in, let's say, 5 to 10 years.
That's a very difficult question.
Well, we're not here to answer the simple questions.
I'm Chief Digital of KPMG Switzerland, so we have a global organization with more than 150 countries. So we have a global steering board also on digitalization. But I'm sure that we have to become more data-driven, and we also have to, let's say, collaborate more with our clients. Because data just doesn't make a distinction between client and service provider. Data is everywhere. So we work on the same platform. And I think that's a change we need to make. Work together with the client on what they need in the future. We don't know what they need in the future. They don't know either, maybe. But together we can figure out which would be the best solution.
I mean, like one of the questions that I'm very curious about to hear, like what are like some of these trends that you see? Like what are the most precious topics to you? Like when you look at this all of digital transformation, and that you say, let's say within, we can first like focus maybe internally of kind of like what within KPMG Switzerland, but we can also in a second step then look at more like what are the topics for digital transformation for your clients. But let's first focus on internally. What are the like these key topics that you say maybe besides data that you are focusing on?
One important point is certainly help our people to transform into this age, to understand what digital really means. We all know it from our personal lives. Digital is a lot of information, maybe also a waste of information. At the end, we really have to figure out what should we focus on, point one. And point two is how do we, I already mentioned, how do we collaborate with our clients? Up to now, digital was probably not in our DNA. Because we came out of audit, we became advisors, but we were not a tech company. And we are slowly transforming into tech advisors as well. So this also means we should make sure that we don't lose our people on the way in this transformation. Which means basically a very important topic for me is transforming culture.
But like maybe I really like to be very practical about it. So what does it mean? Does it mean people have to go into social media, or does it mean people have to use smartphones more? What is it that you do?
It started with teaching people how to use social media. It started with this a couple of years ago. Now we teach them on using new tools, specifically in data and analytics. Data analytics was not a topic we were working on a couple of years ago. Everybody was using Excel, PowerPoint, and all the kinds. And nowadays, these tools are not enough anymore. So we also need to have a skill shift when we hire new people. These people must understand data analytics. Would you have imagined 10 years ago having physics or, let's say, all these people specialize in data analytics in a audit firm? No. Today, you won't be able to provide the service to your client anymore if you're not able to analyze data, let's say, not only frequently, but live.
Now I would like to switch on to the other side, like onto the client side. What do you think is like kind of like the topics that like where you discuss with the clients, that you advise on? Like what is it that like they are struggling with when it's about like the digital approach into the working force?
I think everybody struggles a little bit with the same. There are structural points. Because with the digital layer you can put under your processes, you have also to adjust your processes. First of all, adjust your processes, put the digital layer below it, which means you have to reorganize your structure as a firm. Many people think about what this might be business going to look like in 5 or 10 years. You ask the question. Can we answer this question? Probably not. But as an entrepreneur, you need to work towards the answer of this question. So what steps should I, as a company, take in order to survive or even become better in the next 5 years? These are major decisions which also influence the investments you have to make into new systems. Is it the right system I'm buying? Does this system still fulfill its requirements for my business? Because my business is in transformation. I think that's a very important point where we also can help, because it's all about organization, it's about business analytics, it's about client topics, it's about the setting up of services, it's about process optimization. So
yes,
everything you can imagine.
Sure. I mean, you know, like when you look at, let's say, for example, the lawyers' world. So now you see for the first time like some digital lawyers, whether that's like AI analyzing the contracts, but also like platforms where you can basically download all of the templates for free. Do you see like something like this happening also in the consulting, where kind of like the basics are free for everybody to use and it's just branded, and then like if you want to have special services, you would only pay, or how do you see that with consulting? Where are we going? Are people going to still call you and say like, hey, we need your advice? Or like, what is it going to be like?
First question would be, is there still a phone?
Is there still a phone?
People can call me? Probably not. We probably have a bot that answers the first questions, and then you can still pick up the phone or Skype or whatever. This is what I meant with cultural transformation. Because if you have people in an organization that have done a specific task for, let's say, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or even only 5 years, for them it's difficult to imagine that in 5 years this task won't be necessary anymore, like reading contracts. I'm still convinced, as long as we don't have AI being smarter than we are as people, I still am convinced that the trust in an organization, the trust in the knowledge of the organization, and also the human factor in analyzing certain things will remain for at least the next couple of years, at least as long as I believe I'm in the business. But it's clearly the case that the basics will become probably free knowledge. But what do you do with free knowledge if you don't know what to do with free knowledge?
Absolutely. I would like to shift now the conversation a little bit towards startups. Is startups something that like you work with at KPMG? Like, do you advise, let's say, your clients on working with specific startups? Or how is your interaction with entrepreneurs coming out from KPMG?
Yeah, I mainly can speak for Switzerland. So we have worked with startups. We have even acquired a startup, which has become KPMG Mobile in the meantime. We don't specifically advise our clients on startups. We help them organize it, but there are others who are specialized in this. On a global scale, we certainly scout actively for startups, and we have also very active countries in the KPMG network, like Australia, for instance, who are really pushing forward. This also helps us as a country of Switzerland within KPMG, that we can profit from the know-how these people have gained and also bring to the table. But specific startup consulting in Switzerland, we don't have yet. We may have it in the near future.
But like for me, it's more interesting. Like, you know, when you have you said like actively sourcing startups. I mean, we have a lot of entrepreneurs watching this also. So maybe you can have like kind of like for which type of startup would be interesting for you to kind of like collaborate with.
I have to explain it the other way around. What problem does my client have? And then we try to find a solution for this problem. And this solution then defines the startup. I'm sure we won't build up capabilities we find with startups. So we rather try to collaborate. The challenge we have as also partly audit firm is regulation. Because we are not allowed to provide all services together with startups, because this hinders us to provide other services. The challenge of the regulated environment we are in. So what we try to do is we try to find a way how these, we call them business collaborations or alliances as well, how they can connect directly with the client, and we provide a layer of work that adds the value.
How do you see, for example, I mean, like you probably have a very good holistic overview of like what's currently happening in the digital world here in Switzerland. How do you perceive Switzerland? Do you perceive Switzerland as Switzerland, or do you have any like critique where you say like, look, this is like something that even though we are number one in some World Economic Forum statistics, but are we really digital? Do you feel that like here in Switzerland, the people are already digitalized?
If we would be fully digitalized, we would not have a discussion about 5G antennas.
Yes.
Let's start there. I've seen that there has been a lot of movement in the last, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years. We see venture funds that finally start to invest in startups. We have different platforms where startups can present, where they find the investors. We have companies, we also work with them, who are specialized in scouting startups, evaluating what can the startup bring to this certain solution. I think Switzerland has one major problem. Maybe we shouldn't call it problem, but it's a challenge. It is what I appreciate the most as a citizen of Switzerland, with the direct democracy, the federalistic system. On the other hand, this also brings a lot of challenges to the table when it comes to decision making. So if you enter Switzerland, you can't expect that Switzerland is all the same all over the place. You know that. You have all these cantons, you have different laws, you have many, many different processes, you have different governance. And I think in order for Switzerland to become a real digital hub, which I believe is possible because we are very agile, basically, in Switzerland, we need to rethink the legal and the regulatory structure for becoming real digital.
There's one question, like towards, let's say, some of the students that watch this. Maybe you can like elaborate, because like again, like working in consulting is still very prestigious, especially at the University of St. Gallen, where I studied for my master's. Like everybody, a lot of people still want to go into like investment banking consulting. But what is it kind of like that you're looking for right now? You said like it's a shift of skills that are necessary to become a consultant. What is it that like now, specifically in your department where it's about digitalization, what are you looking for? What type of person are you looking for?
I had to answer the same question when I was attending a high-scale question round. I'm looking for people who are agile, who have an entrepreneurial spirit, and who are eager to learn things they would not even imagine today that they need to learn them. When we talk about your origin from studies, we are of course also looking for people who are specialized in technology and data analytics. But above all, I think the people who work in a big four or a consulting firm, they need to be very agile to adapt to the changing needs of the clients. And the entrepreneurial spirit is necessary because you have to rethink the solution all the time.
And now one critical question, kind of like that is kind of like a stigma that you have whenever you work in a bigger company. Like you said, like you're looking for agile and everything, the nice words. But bottom line is, how do you get stuff done in these companies? Like when the bigger your company is, the bigger corporate is, like do you really like, how can you make sure that like stuff actually gets done and the people are not coming in with the skills and then like it's not being used the way you imagined it?
That's also part of the cultural shift I talked about. We are probably a couple of steps away from this new culture. I strongly believe that you get the stuff done if you work in teams. And the team should not be too big, and the team should be fully accountable for the results they achieve. And this, at the end, leads to a shift of how you evaluate your people at the end of the year. So nowadays it's more linear, and tomorrow it will potentially become more fuzzy, but project-based. So I think the team should be accountable for what they achieve, and then they also get the things done like I get it done.
Roll up your sleeve. What's your tip for work-life balance?
My tip for work-life balance would be do what you enjoy to do, and then you find the balance.
How do you make sure you keep productivity high?
Entrepreneurial spirit. because this also always drives.
How do you make sure to be a good digital leader?
By listening and allowing everybody to tell me what I could change in order to become more effective or efficient.
Testing new things?
Of course.
Okay.
The buzzword.
Yes.
Try fast, fail fast, whatever. But,
Sure.
but you need to be ready to try out new things.
Cool. What would you consider your biggest mistake?
Did somebody ever answer this question?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But we always have backup questions, so if you don't want to answer...
No, that's fine. I think the biggest mistake I made was waiting too long for taking the decision.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Who would you consider your role model?
That's a difficult one. From a, let's say, future-oriented perspective, it's probably Steve Jobs, but most likely not from a personal perspective.
Yes.
My advice would be that you have to think open-mindedly. You should not plan your life ahead on a straight road because it becomes bumpy in any case. And you should be able to adjust if it becomes too bumpy. The old saying of lifelong learning is probably not the worst advice to follow.
Yeah. Okay, very cool, Bear. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who stayed in all the way till the end of episode 173 of the Startup Show, together with the partner and CDO of KPMG, Beat Seger. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for listening.
Have a great Monday, and I'll see you next week.
Hi guys, my name is Tony Gradenecker. I'm initiator and visionary of HANA Now. Next week with Cedric, together we want to discuss how we do instant delivery in 32 minutes. Stay tuned, till next week.